Hold the front page. I'm Lembit Öpik and welcome to Press Release here on Press TV, where we find the facts, kill the spin and tell it like it is about the stories making the headlines. We'll be looking at topical tales from all over the world and sorting out the reality from the rubbish. First, a roundup of recent events with developing dramas that cause more questions than answers. We'll look at the mixed messages coming from America about Syrian involvement and ask if the USA is more interested in fighting talk or fighting Syrians. We look at the world's rich list and ask if it's really necessary for half the world's wealth to belong to about 24 people. And we try to figure out how Washington has managed to stop Moscow from selling Russian aircraft to the Iranians. What weirdness, what a week, what a world. Let's get down to the details and separate the political friction from the political fiction. What's the US doing in Syria? According to President Donald Trump, it's time for the US to go home. In a sudden announcement at the end of 2018, he said he was going to withdraw the American military presence from Syria. They've been very active there for years in a bid to get rid of President Bashar al-Assad. The USA has hardly been peace-loving in its bid to bash Bashar. First, they armed a load of militants who turned out to be enemies of Syria and America. Then they accidentally dropped military resources to even more of their own enemies. And all the while, thousands of civilians who hadn't done anything to anyone were caught in the crossfire. Let's remember where all this began. Some years back, the West reckoned that it could get lots of Western-friendly regimes in the Middle East to replace the old ones in countries from Egypt to Libya and, of course, Syria. But within a few months, that happy Arab Spring had turned into a political winter of discontent. Billions of US dollars went into achieving nothing but messy Middle East military mayhem. According to top military commanders in Tehran, the American war bill for Iraq and Syria came to $7 trillion and achieved almost nothing. Using the internationally recognized instrument of statesmanship and diplomacy, namely the tweet, he claimed, "We have defeated ISIS in Syria. My only reason for being there during the Trump presidency." Well, that's news to a lot of people who think the whole thing's been a disaster. Yet old habits die hard, and diehards in America won't change their habits, even if those old habits change nothing. So will America withdraw from Syria? No. To update an old saying, it seems that the gun is truly mightier than the tweet. Did you know around 24 people own the same as the poorest 50% of the human race? Oxfam International, the charity that campaigns to end poverty, revealed the growing gap between rich and poor. In 2016, 61 people were worth the same as the poorest half of Earth's human population. By 2017, it was down to 43, and last year the number was just 26. This super-rich circle owns $1.4 trillion worth of wealth, the same as the least wealthy 3.8 billion Earthlings. The list includes billionaires like Amazon's Jeff Bezos, Microsoft's Bill Gates, Berkshire Hathaway's Warren Buffett, and Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg. Add them all up and this gang of four is collectively worth $357 billion. And this group all happen to be Americans. But the problem is being blamed, in part, on governments that don't want to put tax on very wealthy people and are willing to underfund public services like healthcare and education as a result. And then there are the companies which pay tiny taxes by having very clever accountants who find ways around the tax bills without even breaking the law. Oxfam recommends universal free healthcare, education and other public services, including water and electricity, plus free childcare. In the meantime, the very little clique with billions will keep getting richer, as the billions with very little will try to get by as best they can. That's the law of the free market. If you're rich, the only way is up. But if you're poor now, you'll probably still be poor tomorrow. It's not morally wrong to be rich, but it's morally bankrupt when these inequalities kill the poor. Meanwhile, American interference has claimed a new victim: aircraft sales to Iran. Iran Air has been trying to buy aircraft called the Sukhoi Superjet 100. Unfortunately, aircraft sales to Iranian airlines were put on hold for the most surprising of reasons. Apparently, there are too many American parts in the Russian aeroplanes. If the percentage goes above 10%, then, believe it or not, plane sales need approval from the US Treasury. Yes, in this topsy-turvy world, Washington can stop Moscow selling Russian aircrafts to Tehran. So what's the result? One possibility is that Russia redesigns the plane so it has fewer American parts in it. In other words, the American sanctions could reduce trade for American aerospace companies, which means that America will have basically imposed sanctions on itself. What kind of international relations is this? On the one hand, everybody says they want Iran to come in from the cold. On the other, the Americans are preventing Iran from buying the planes they need to get ordinary Iranian people to go places in an ordinary, peaceful way. And where is Europe in all of this? Looks like they're following orders from Washington too, despite telling firms that they'd be protected if they did business in Iran. Suddenly, it's gone very quiet in Brussels, with no sign of any real help for Iran-friendly firms at all. That's the spirit. As far as sales to Iran are concerned, when the going gets tough, the West stops going. So what happens next? I guess we have to do what we always do in these situations: wait for the next tweet from Trump to see if he'll finally let Russia sell planes to Iran. Yes, he's got the power to do it. And that's just plain crazy. And as usual, I'll make some predictions about what could happen in the weeks ahead. Firstly, America's withdrawal from Syria will continue to look like they haven't changed a thing, because they haven't, and they won't. Eventually, all the money in the world will be in the hands of so few people that will start a new currency, which you can only spend if you're poor. That's not a bad idea, actually. And Iran will get so fed up with US sanctions on aircraft imports that it will build its own aeroplanes and put Boeing out of business. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and join me next time for Press Release here on Press TV, the show that takes the political fiction out of the political friction. Hold the front page, but don't trust it. Trust me.